feet just underneath our hips, and we'll allow the toes to gently point forwards. Let's take a moment to just shift gently from one foot to the other foot, allowing ourselves to gently rock on the feet. And then we can allow ourselves to transfer the weight gently forwards and back as well. So we can allow ourselves to come over the front of the foot and into the back of the foot. And some of us will find one extreme more familiar than others. So you might find that having your weight all the way on the front of your foot is where you naturally stand. So just allow yourself to take a moment to recognise that, and then we'll find that place where our weight's right in the centre of the 2 feet. And when we find that place, we'll just start to think about finding a little arch that gently comes up through coming up gently through the arches of the feet. And we'll allow that breath to come and go nice and gently. And then let's allow there to be a little bit of softness in the knees, and we'll bring our awareness to our pelvis. We'll allow ourselves to gently tip a little bit of, imagining the pelvis or a bucket of water, we tip a little bit of water out the front of the bucket, tip a little bit of water out of the back of the bucket. Yeah, lovely. Taking it through those 2 extremes. And then we'll find that place where our bucket of water comes to level. And when we find that place, let's lift up through the pelvic floor muscles. Tailbone descends gently down. And then we'll lengthen tall through the spine. We'll let the shoulders lift and we'll roll the shoulders gently back and down. And again, the shoulders lift and roll back and down. Just taking 2 more like that. And rolling back and down. And last one. Shoulders ease towards one another and sink down towards the tailbone. Take a deep breath. Let's allow the right arm to float forwards and up. And as the arm floats back down, we'll allow the opposite arm to float upwards. Good. Changing arms each time, so we're like a toy soldier. And as we do that, we'll keep that sense of connection through the belly button, drawing up through the pelvic floor. Lovely. Finding that sense of softness into the knees, softness into the ankles. And then let's allow those arms to release down both sides. Taking a breath, let the right ear dip down towards the right shoulder. And allow the head to lift up and over to the opposite side. And again, the head gently lifts up, over to the right side. And up and over to the second side. And then we'll bring the head into the centre and we'll let the head gently rotate round to the right side. Coming into the centre and rotating round to the second side. Good, and again on each side. So we'll come into the centre and we'll tuck the chin in slightly, and we're going to gently roll down through the spine, coming down through the vertebrae bit by bit. Take a nice deep breath at the bottom, and we're breathing out as we roll up through the spine. Now when you get to the top there, take a little bend of the knees for me, so just soften into the knees, lovely, and lengthen. And again, we'll release through the top of the head, rolling down through the spine. So the top of the head releases and we start to release down through the vertebrae. So we're looking to find mobility through the spine, increasing that sense of openness through the vertebrae. If you know there's a reason why you shouldn't do flexion through the spine, if you've got osteoporosis, or if you've got a slipped disc or something really going on with the lower back, you can take a squat action here and then a plie, so you're not taking that roll down, because you might find that flexibility through the spine exacerbates the issue. So we'll steer clear of that. This time as we take our plie, let's let the arms open out to the side. And we'll do that once more, rolling gently down through the spine. Nice deep breath at the bottom, and breathing out as we roll up through the spine. Lifting the shoulders, roll the shoulders back and down and bending through the knees. Lovely. So from there, let's take our side bend up and over to the right side. Lovely. Coming through the centre, and we're coming up and over to the opposite side. And again, up and over, extending out through the top of the head and through the centre. Lovely. Keep that going for me. Good. We can add the top arm in if we want to. Lifting up and over. Breath in as we come back to the centre and up and over to the second side. Good. One more on each side. And then coming into the centre, and we'll draw the fingertips in towards one another. Shoulders melting down the back. Tailbone descends down. We allow the rib cage to gently rotate round to the right side. Breathing in as we return back to the centre. And then rotating round to the opposite side. Good, let's keep that going. So if you feel ready to, we'll take the elbows wide and we'll allow the rib cage to rotate as the pelvis stays really nice and still. Breathing in as we return back, rotating gently round. And then as we come back to the centre, let's cut the space with our hands. Bring a tray in front of us with both hands. Shoulders glide down the back, and then we're gently opening out. Breathing in as we return back to the centre. And again, opening out. So the shoulders are gliding together. We've got that softness in the knees. And this time we'll allow that right hand to gently open out and come above the head, as if we've got a tray or something that we're balancing and we don't want to spill it, so the hand comes above the head, keeping that hand nice and level. Lovely, good. Keep that going for me. One more on each side. And then let's press the hands away from us, pressing out through the heel of the hand, and we'll take 3 little circles with the shoulders gliding down. So breathing out for 3, 2, 1, change direction, 3, 2, 1, once again, and 3, 2, 1, change direction, 3, 2, 1, take the hands behind you, finding the hands behind you. So you might want to bring the hands together and allow yourself to take a prayer position going upwards, or you might want to bring the hands together and see if you can find the elbows. Once you get there, just check that the tailbone isn't dipping behind you, but the tailbone's descending down. So you're connecting up through the pelvic floor, shoulders gliding down the back. Nice. And releasing there. Let's allow the arms to have a little shake out. So earlier I spoke about those squats that you can put in instead of your roll down. So let's allow ourselves to have a little look at those now. We'll squeeze in through the tummy. We're going to hinge into the hips, sinking back into the pelvis. And then we'll breathe in as we lift up nice and tall. Let's do that again, sinking back. So we'll hinge into the hips and the knees, nice crease into the pelvis and into the knees. And we've got strength coming in through the core. We'll start to add in a little bit of balance work. So as we come up to standing, we'll allow ourselves to take a little rise, heels lift away from the floor. Floating those heels down, sinking back. And we lift up tall, taking that rise, heels lift away from the floor. And softening softening down, sinking back through the pelvis. We lift on up. Last one. And then this time we'll allow ourselves to take a little lift through the right foot. So we'll allow the knee to lift and floating that foot back down. Lovely. Changing over to the other side. Good. And softening down. So we're changing sides each time, looking to keep the tailbone descending down, using those core muscles to really stabilise us. I'm on my wobbly mat today, so we'll see what my balance is like. Lovely. Now we're going to think about adding in a little forwards lunge. So we transfer the weight. So we allow the right leg to lift. Make sure you've got a little bit of space in front of you. We're going to take a little step forwards, and then both knees bend, and then we transfer the weight back and bring the feet back down. And other leg lifts, that's it, nice, good. And we're sinking down, and we draw the leg back and floating down. Good, yeah, nice, good. So let's allow ourselves to take a little lift with the arms, and as we step forwards, drop the arms but lift the chest, and then we can bring the arms open as we catch ourselves back. Again, arms open. It's a swing with the arms, but let's keep the chest high. That's it, that's much better, good. And other side. Swing and lift and floating down, lovely. And releasing out through the arms there. Good. Once you've made sure you're even on both sides, we'll take our roll down through the spine and we'll bring ourselves onto hands and knees. So taking a deep breath, breathing out, rolling down through the spine. If you know rolling down isn't good for you and your spine, come down in a way that works for you better. And then we'll bring the hands directly underneath our shoulders. Knees underneath the hips. So we're taking a nice deep breath from there. We'll take a little cat stretch. Let's push the back up into the sky. And then we'll allow the head and the tail to lengthen out and away from one another. And again, we push the back up into the sky, head drops between the arms, and we lengthen out and away. Let's do two more like that. Again, if flexion through the spine isn't what you want to focus on today, we'll just allow ourselves to stay nice and stable through the position and just finding that strength in the core. So finishing off there, we'll take a deep breath from here. We're going to connect in through the belly button. Take a deep breath. As we breathe out, one leg glides away from us. Breathing in as the leg returns. Changing over to the other side. Now, if you want to, the opposite arm can lengthen away at the same time. So, as we're doing that, let's allow the hips to be nice and stable and still. We'll allow the shoulders to be nice and stable and still. So let's imagine that there's a cup of tea balanced on our pelvis and a cup of tea balanced on each shoulder blade. And we'll keep those shoulder blades gliding down the back as if they were coasters gliding and just staying nice and stable on the rib cage. Finishing off there, we'll take our thread in the needle. Right hand lifts and we'll rotate that. We'll thread the hand through the gap between the hand and the knee. Breathing in as we draw the hand back and we change over to the other side. We lift and rotate through. Breathing in as the arm returns. Thanks, lovely. And we lift, rotating gently through. And coming back. And finishing off on that second side. I did get my morning cup of tea. You must have heard what I was saying about having it balanced on your pelvis. But don't balance a real cup of tea on your pelvis at this stage in the game. Taking a nice deep breath for me there, guys. Let's allow those shoulders to glide down the back, and we'll strengthen up really nice and tight through the core. Let's glide the right leg away from us, and we'll tuck the toe under. We're going to come into our plank position. So we're taking a nice deep breath. We're going to really brace up through the abs, really drawing through the abs, and we're going to push the other leg away. So we're now in a long line from the heels to the pelvis, to the shoulders, to the top of the head. Watch out that the head's not dropping. We want the head to be extending out and away. Take one more breath. Now lower the knees. Now as you lower the knees, notice you've now got a long line from knees to hips to shoulders. So you're not in like a tabletop anymore. You've got a nice long line from knees to hips to shoulders. This is our modified plank. It's a marvellous thing, and you're working really hard as you pull the belly button up. Keep breathing for me. Take a breath. We're going to allow the elbow to come down. We're going to allow the elbow to come down. Now we've got a long line from the pelvis to the shoulders. Shoulders are gliding down and the head's extending out and away. Keep breathing for me there. Just realise how unhelpful this top is, because you can't see what I'm doing. Now, can we, from here, tuck the toes under, push through the heels and lift the knees? Squeezing through the tummy, keep breathing. If you start to shake here, lower the knees. One more breath, lower the knees, and we'll sit back onto our heels. Woo! That was a bit cheeky for 9:30, wasn't it? Let's allow ourselves to be really nice and heavy through the head, so the neck gets a nice sense of release there. And we'll bring ourselves onto our fronts. We're going to take a little bit of extension work through the upper back. So we'll allow the elbows to go wide. We'll let the fingers point forwards. The nose hovers just an inch away from the floor, and the legs are really nice and heavy on the ground. So as you lay here, just allow all your toenails to rest on the floor for me. You didn't need to do that. That was my hair going in my nose. Now, the nose hovers just an inch away from the floor, and we're looking down. So we're going to squeeze in through the tummy and feel that we've got that sense that the belly button is drawing up and away from the ground. At the same time, keep the tailbone lengthening away from you. So we're not going to lift the pelvis here. We're going to keep the pelvis lengthening away. Take a deep breath in. Shoulders glide down the back, head extends out and away, and the breastbone gently lifts. And then we breathe in as we float back down. Keep that going for me. So when I teach this in class, I find that men tend to change the alignment of their pelvis when I say squeeze in through the tummy. We don't want to change the alignment of the pelvis, but I am told on good authority that you might need to readjust certain things before you find that position comfortably. I'll leave that to you to work out what I'm talking about. So the shoulders glide down, and we're looking to find a little bit of length through the breastbone and a little bit of movement through the upper back. We're going to keep our hands from pushing into the ground. So if you feel that you want a little bit of extra challenge, take the hands round by your sides, palms face upwards. Fingers glide towards the toes, and we breathe in as we float back down. And again, fingers stretch towards the toes, and we float back down. Now making sure that we're not squashing the tummy into the ground as we do that. We've still got that sense of the belly button drawing upwards. Last one. And drawing the hands underneath the shoulders, sitting up onto your heels, and just take a little bit of a length through the back, because that might feel nice to just release in the opposite direction. So from here we're going to take a nice lunge forwards, and we're going to take a little stretch into the hip. So we'll allow the right foot to lunge forwards. So it's a great big step forwards in front of you. And as we allow ourselves to, we'll just take a moment to tip the pelvis gently forwards and back here, so we get a nice sense of release into the pelvis. And for some of us, that will be a really good stretch. Some of us will find it hard to make the pelvis move in this position, and that's okay. If you feel ready to, we're going to allow our pelvis to come that bit further forwards. Watch the knee doesn't go over the toes. We want to keep the knee in line with the ankle. So we're lifting really tall. Let's take a nice deep breath in. We'll breathe out and float the hands back down, and then just a cheeky push back onto the pelvis, keeping that front leg lengthened, and feel that nice lengthening through the hamstring. Not sure whether the word is nice. And releasing from me there, changing over legs. So we'll sweep the other leg through. We might need to put the hand on the ground to stabilise us, but we'll see. Beautiful. Lengthening really nice and tall. And again, we'll just tip the pelvis under and then release. Taking it through those extremes, gently forwards and back. She said it's wobbling all over the place. So once we've found that mobility through the pelvis, you need to keep with that idea, or we'll allow our weight to come a little bit further forwards. That's it, nice, good. Nice and strong through the core. Taking a deep breath in, we'll reach really tall. Reaching up for the sky. And then drawing the weight back. And we'll take the weight back through to the pelvis, seeing if we can extend into that front leg. It might not extend all the way, it might just be horrible, in which case just make it really small. So it might be that you're just here and pushing out through the bottom. See what works. And releasing there, well done. Now once again, just take a little seat back down onto your pelvis. Allow yourself to drop in this nice lengthened position, shoulders gliding down, tailbone descends down. I appreciate that some of us, when we get into this position, are screaming, or more importantly, the thighs are screaming. If you're in that position, we'll just take 3 more breaths and then we'll come up onto our knees, or you can find a seated position that works for you better. So either stay in here, or you can come up to a kneeling position where your tailbone can really descend down, or you can find a seated position that works better for you, preferably one where you're level through the pelvis. So we'll draw the fingertips in together and we'll allow the shoulders to glide down the back. Pelvis is staying still, rib cage gently rotates round. We breathe in as we return back to the centre. And we rotate round to the opposite side. And coming back to the centre. Good, keeping that going for me, rotating gently round. Keep that going for me, looking to keep the pelvis really nice and stable and still. If you feel ready to, the elbows go wide, the fingers point upwards. So we rotate gently round, breathing in as we return back to the centre. And again we rotate gently round, and drawing back to the centre. And finishing off there, let's allow the arms to release. Let's bring ourselves round to a seated position so we can take a little bit of openness through the hips. We'll allow the feet to come together and the knees to go wide. For some of us, the knees don't like that, so we can take the legs wide instead. And we'll look to get a nice sense of release into the hips. Letting those shoulders glide down the back, and once again just allow yourself to release the head from side to side. That's it, lovely. And then we'll we'll just tuck the chin towards the chest. Let the head become nice and heavy. And then lifting up nice and tall. Allow your right leg to extend out and away from you. And we'll keep that knee bent. If you're finding that this knee doesn't want to bend, you can take the both legs together instead. So we'll lift up nice and tall, and then we'll allow ourselves to gently ease over that lengthened leg. Good. So hopefully we'll start to find that we'll ease a little bit further into the stretch with each breath. Without pushing or tugging at the muscles, we'll just allow ourselves to just gently ease into that stretch. And lift nice and tall. Draw that bent leg in, and then we'll give it a little hug. Hug the leg in, lift really tall, and then we'll spiral in as we look over our left shoulder. And eyes return back to the front, and we'll change over legs. So we'll lengthen the left leg away from us, allow the right knee to open out to the side. Lifting nice and tall, shoulders glide down the back, and we allow the chest to gently extend forwards. And then lifting nice and tall, and we'll take that bent leg in. You can of course take it across the leg if you want a little bit more of a stretch there, and then we'll wrap round with the arm, take the right arm behind us, lift up nice and tall, and spiral as you're looking over your right shoulder. And releasing there. Well done, well done, good. Bringing the feet just hip distance apart, and we'll allow ourselves to take our capital C exercise as we come down to lie in. So we'll take a few here. Now, we're going to allow ourselves to start by just thinking about the pelvis. So we're lifting really nice and tall. We'll tilt the tailbone under, and then we'll release and lengthen tall. So again, we'll tilt the tailbone under, and we'll release and lengthen nice and tall. So again, if there's any osteoporosis, any disc issues that you want to monitor, this is the level that I want you to stick to, really just looking at mobilising through the pelvis. If you want more core strength, more mobility work, the arms lengthen out and away from you, and we can keep those shoulders gliding down the back as we curve a bit further. The beginning is still the same, it's still instigated from the pelvis, and then we lengthen up nice and tall. Now we're just getting to that place before we get the shudder, before the feet lose contact with the floor, before your tummy starts to dome upwards. So you've really got that scooped sensation. And we lengthen up nice and tall. Now I'm just wondering whether we could add that little spine twist that we did earlier in. So we'll bring the hands to the elbows, and we'll take a little rotation, coming back to the centre, and a little rotation. Coming back to the centre, curling down, tilt the tailbone, and curling gently under. And we lengthen up nice and tall, drawing the hands on top of the elbows, gently rotating round, breathing in as we return back to the centre, rotating gently round. Lovely. Now if anyone's feeling ambitious, stretch one leg out in front of you, so if you can keep the knees nice and still as we curl back, and come on up, float the leg down, and rotate gently round. And then this time we'll lift the other leg. Curling back. Nice, keeping those knees level with one another. Lifting and lengthening. Rotation. We're going to allow ourselves to come all the way to the floor this time. So you can go with both legs lifted if you want to, or you can keep both feet grounded, or you can come onto one side and allow yourself to come down in a way that suits you better. That was it, Margaret. Nice. So we've got the feet just resting on the floor. We've got the knees bent. Let's allow ourselves to just zone in on the pelvis. We'll allow ourselves to imagine that the pelvis is a bowl of water. And we're going to allow a little bit of water to swish into the towards the belly button, and then a little bit to swish towards the pubic bone. We'll take it through those two extremes. And we'll find that place where it feels as though those two areas are level. So we're not spilling the water into the belly button, we're not spilling the water into the pubic bone. And then we'll just tip gently from side to side and feel that you're level through both sides of the hips as well. We've got that squeeze in through the tummy. Taking a nice deep breath, stretch the right leg away from you. Breathing in as the leg returns, and then changing to the other side. So while we're here, we're going to think technique. So we're going to think pelvis is staying level, drawing in through the belly button, engaging through the pelvic floor to keep the pelvis really nice and stable and still. The shoulders are gliding down the back. So as the leg extends away, we can allow the opposite arm to lengthen up and over the head. Breathing in as the arm and the leg return. Let's add in our knee opener from here. So as the arm and the leg draw back in, we'll allow the knee to open out to the side. And drawing that leg back in, changing over to the opposite leg, extending away. Breathing in as the leg returns, and then the knee opens out to the side. So we'll add in a few extra challenges. We allow the leg to stretch away. Now if you want to, as the leg draws back in, the knee lifts to hover above the hip socket, and then the knee opens out to the side. Breathe in as the leg returns and floating back down. Changing to the other side. Draw that leg in, let the knee open out to the side. Keeping the hips still. So the objective here is not how pretty your legs are, it's making sure that the pelvis stays nice and stable as you're doing the action. If you feel ready to, and there's no osteoporosis, then we can allow ourselves to take a little abdominal curl up as we plant this foot again. So as the knee comes back in, we'll gently curl the head and shoulders away from the floor, and we'll breathe in as we float back down. Changing sides, shoulder glides down the back, leg stretches away. Breathe in as the leg returns. Knee opens out to the side. Draw that knee back in. As you float the foot down, we can take that abdominal curl up. Great. Now, if you want to, we'll either keep that going. If you want to, you can work with your two-leg tundra position. This works for some of us, others of us it's not so good for. With two legs lifted, we're imprinted in the spine, so the same thing applies. It's exactly the same pattern. Finish off the one that you're doing, and then we'll bring the knees in towards the chest and give them a good hug. So we'll have a look at our two-leg tundra position in a moment, which works for, as I say, it works for some of us and it doesn't work for others. So let's try out, we've got our knees hugged in nice and tight to our chest. I want you to take a moment to really switch into those deep core muscles. So we'll think about drawing the belly button down to the spine here, and we'll think about engaging in through the pelvic floor. take a deep breath, and then see if we can allow the arms to rest down by our side. Now, if you get to this position and you're thinking, oh, my back feels like it's pulling away from the ground, then hold on to them, and then we'll work with one leg lifted instead of two. If you get to here and your tummy's not scooping downwards, again, it's going to be a bit of a false economy because it tells us that we've fatigued the deep core muscles already. If you're here and you're thinking, I can do more, we'll allow the legs to start stretching away from us. So we're thinking about where is that challenge place. So we're going to allow the calf to come into line with the knee, and the knee is going to aim to be somewhere around just above the hip socket. Now, if you get to there and that's where your back starts to pull up, then just draw the leg back in a little bit. If you find that you can be a bit further away from the hips, marvellous. So we're breathing nice and deeply. Let's just allow ourselves to be really lengthened through the neck. And in fact, while you're here, just take a moment to roll the head to the right, coming back to the centre, roll the head to the left, coming back to the centre. So we talked about if anyone's feeling that they're struggling through the lower back, we allow one leg to be resting on the floor, and we've got that natural curve in the lower back. If you're working with one leg lifted, let's change over to the other leg now. Neutral spine, hips and pubic bone are level. Shoulders sinking into the ground. Rib cage draws down towards the pelvis, so you feel as though the gap between the ribs and the pelvis are as close as they can be. There's a connection, a drawing in. One more breath, and we'll float one foot down to the ground, and we'll float the other foot down to the ground also. Well done. Take a nice deep breath for me there and find a neutral spine position. Hips and pubic bone are level. Allow the right knee to lift, to hover above the hip socket, bringing the calf to a 90-degree angle. Now we'll gently stir that right thigh bone within the hip socket. So we're breathing out for half the circle, breathing in to complete the circle. Hip bones are level with one another. Rib cage rests down into the floor. And the neck stays nice and long. So just take two more in that direction, then we'll change to the opposite direction with the same leg. If you're thinking you might want a little bit more challenge, you can just allow that opposite leg to slide a little bit further away from you so it gets out of your way. You can also look at lengthening the angle of this leg that's lifted. So it's sort of become a heavier lever. And also you might find that the hamstrings and the other muscles of the upper leg are going to dictate how big you can make that circle. When you've done 5 on that leg, we'll bring that knee and give it a little hug. And then slide the left leg away from you, gliding that leg away. So you get that sense that the back can really press into the floor here. And we'll scoop in through the tummy. Let's draw that left leg in. Place the right foot down onto the floor, and once again return to neutral spine. Left knee lifts. Hovering above the hip socket, rib cage is soft. Gently circling the thigh bone. Hips stay nice and stable and still. We're going to look for the level pelvis. And as we did before, we can slide the opposite leg away a little, or we can look to stretch out through that top leg if that's the challenge that's right for us. Notice, if you stretch this leg out, you might find that the back starts to push into the floor and release away. We don't want that. When we've done 5 in one direction, we'll change to the opposite direction. And if you start to find that the hips wobble from side to side, just make the movement smaller and see if we can find a real smoothness in that action. And when we've finished off those 5, we'll draw that knee in towards us and we'll stretch the right leg away from us. And we'll let those shoulders melt down into the ground. Good. So from there, let's bring the feet onto the floor. and we'll allow the arms to rest down by our sides. We're going to take our shoulder bridge from here. So I'm going to talk you through the mobility work. So first of all, let's start just as we did with our capital C, pressing the lower back into the floor and then just releasing. So we're just looking for a pelvic tilt, so a little action through the spine, just looking to find that mobility. If you've got osteoporosis, I want you to stick with this for a moment. If you've got nothing going on lower back wise, we can start to think about peeling the spine away from the floor. Now, we're going to do that by pressing the lower back into the ground, just as we were doing, and then we're looking to bring the spine away from the ground in a nice sequential order. Lovely. We get to that place where knees, hips and shoulders are in line with one another. Take a breath and then breathe out, and we'll float the vertebrae back down one by one, pressing the pelvis into the floor, and then we allow the pelvis to return back to neutral spine. Nice deep breath there, and again we push the lower back into the floor, tipping the tailbone up, peeling the spine away from the ground. If you want to add the arms in, we can do that here. They'll lift up towards the sky or all the way over the head. We'll leave them there as we float the vertebrae back down one by one. We press the lower back into the floor, pelvis comes down, and we return back to neutral spine, letting the arms return back by our sides. Good, keeping that going for me. Now, if you want to, we can start to bring this into the bottom a little bit more, and we can take some little leg lifts, but I'm just going to talk you through, if you want to make it more dynamic and you're not working for mobility through the spine, we're going to allow ourselves to stay in one unit. So pelvis stays nice and still, bottom lifts us up, whole of the torso comes in one go, and then we float back down. And keep that going for me. So you're now using the dynamic action through the bottom to lift you and softening down. Let's all make sure that when we get to the top, we're not flaring the rib cage upwards, but we've got that sense that we're kind of soft through the rib cage is extending towards the hips. And come on down, lovely. So I'm just going to talk you through those leg lifts if you feel ready for them. Now, some of us find that our glutes don't like it, so they start to switch off when we lift the leg, in which case the hamstrings will start overworking. If your hamstrings start talking to you, we're just going to do some little bottom squeezes instead of the leg lifts, because it tells us that the glutes aren't quite ready for it yet. Lifting those arms up and over the head, and we'll float the vertebrae back down one by one. Allowing those arms to come back by our sides. And if you want to add in a little abdominal curl up, now's your chance to. Again, if there's any osteoporosis, we'll just leave the abdominal curl up out. Finishing off this time with that abdominal curl up if you're taking it, and bring both the knees in towards the chest and give them a good hug. Good, well done. So again, let's find that nice two-legged 100 position, and we'll do some work from there. So we're scooping the tummy in, and we're allowing ourselves to really connect in through the pelvic floor. Let's allow ourselves to find the place that works for us. It might be with two legs lifted, it might be with one leg lifted. So we'll work with neutral spine if we've got one leg lifted, imprinted spine if we've got two legs lifted. Take a deep breath for me. As you breathe out, you're going to stretch the leg away, one leg away, breathe in as the leg returns. If you're working with two legs lifted, you're changing legs each time. If you're working with one leg lifted, you're going to do 5 on this first side and then change over to the other side. The lower we take our leg, the more of a challenge it's going to be for us to keep those hips nice and stable and still and keep the back in place. Let's change over to the other leg. If we're working with one leg lifted, if you're working with two legs lifted, keep that going for me. And finishing off there, allow your left foot to rest down onto the floor and allow yourself to take hold of your right leg, holding on around the back of the thigh. And then we're going to go into our hamstring stretch. So we'll lengthen that leg up for the sky. If you've got a band or a belt or a strap or something that you can wrap around your foot, that's marvellous. Do that for me. And then you can just hold on to the ends. But if you haven't, we're just holding on to the leg. We're allowing the shoulders to gently melt down into the ground, and just take a moment to check that your chin's not tipping upwards, but it's kind of tucked in. You can just release from side to side if you want, just to check that you're not holding any tension, any excess tension there. So let's squeeze in through the tummy from there. Let's allow the arms to rest down by our sides. Keep that squeeze in place. We're going to keep the back pressing into the ground, and we're going to allow the leg to lower towards the floor. And we'll breathe in as we draw the leg back in. Good, take 4 more like that. Notice that you might find there's a place where the back no longer wants to press into the floor, it wants to pull up. We don't want to let it pull up, so we just go as far as we can go without the back pulling upwards. I think this is our last one. I did lose count there as I was talking away. So from there, just bend the knee for me and then return that spine to neutral. We'll allow the toe to dip down, keeping the rib cage resting into the floor, keeping that natural curve in the lower back. Taking 3 more. Now, we're going to explore coming into our 2-legged 100 position from this place. If you know that doesn't work for you, by all means work out a way that does. Push the lower back into the floor here and then allow the second leg to lift. If you immediately get into this position and think, oh, that's horrible, my back doesn't feel very nice, put the right leg back down straight away. Otherwise, we're going to take just 3 more breaths here, looking to keep the belly button squeezing in, looking to keep the back pressing down and allowing the neck to be nice and long. 1 more breath, the right leg floats back down towards the floor and we return back to neutral. From there, we'll take those little toe dips. We dip the toe down, we allow the leg to lift. We dip the toe down and we lift, and we're drawing in through the tummy, but we're not pushing the back into the floor. We're keeping the back pressed in our neutral spine, so it's not pushing down, it's keeping it nice and stable. And again, I've lost count. I think this is our last one. So bring that leg in, give it a good hug. You can push the lower back into the floor as you take this little stretch, and then we'll stretch that leg up towards the sky, seeing if we can fully extend through the knee. Nice and gently with the breath. We let the shoulders melt down into the floor. We squeeze in through the tummy. And then once again, releasing the arms, and we'll allow that leg to lower down. This time keeping the back pressing into the floor. So we've got that imprinted spine. So when we've got imprinted spine, we've got more abdominal muscles working for us. We've got the more superficial muscles working, as well as the deeper abdominal muscles working. So it's worth playing around with some exercises that we do in neutral, so therefore we're really working into that transverse work, and we're really focusing in on our neutral, which is great for functional fitness. I'm going to go with one more. And bring that knee in, give it a good hug. Bring the other knee in, give it a good hug. Shoulders melt down into the floor. Take a deep breath, keep that squeeze in the tummy. Allow the legs to release, allow the hands to release, and we can find that place where the knees work and we're in a good 100 position where we're strengthening through the core. So it might be with the knees hovering over the hip socket, it might be one leg lifted and one foot on the floor. Let's allow the arms to lengthen up towards the sky. We'll let the shoulders drop down into the ground, palms come to face one another. Take a nice deep breath there and we'll gently circle the arms, breathing out for half the circle, breathing in to complete the circle. So as if you're drawing little circles on the ceiling. As you do that, let's see if we can allow these circles to get a little bit larger. But we want to keep the shoulders sinking down into the ground, or keep the rib cage softening into the floor. At this stage, we've got the back pressing into the ground. If you're working with one leg lifted, you're in neutral spine. We're going to change the direction of our arm circles, and then we're going to see about allowing the leg to stretch away from us. So one leg stretches away as the arms circle out, and we breathe in as the leg returns and we complete the circle. If you're working with two legs lifted, we'll alternate sides each time. If you're working with one leg lifted, do 3 with one leg and then we'll change over to the other leg. If anybody's feeling really clever today, you can keep the lower back pressing into the floor and maybe see about both legs stretching away and drawing back in. If it makes you shudder, don't take them so low. If it starts to pull the back away from the floor, you need to go higher. Last one, draw the knees in, give them a good hug. And maybe a little jiggle with the feet, maybe a little rock from side to side. Now we're going to take our rolling like a ball to bring ourselves up to sitting. If there's any osteoporosis, lower disc issue, we don't want to do a rolling like a ball, in which case we'll come onto one side and bring ourselves up to a seated position. Otherwise we're peeling the head up towards the knees and we're taking a little forwards and back rock. Marvellous. So we will take a little stretch into the hip. We've got 2 minutes left of class, so if you feel you want to take a roll in like a ball, now's your opportunity to. Otherwise, enjoy a little bit of a hip stretch instead. So our roll in like a ball, just check that you've got the length behind you, you've got some space behind you. The hands can come around the shins. We'll lengthen really nice and tall. Chin tucks in, you've got that nice curve through the lower back. We rock back and we lift. So we're rocking back into our ball and then we're rocking back up. Head and neck stay away from the floor. Now, just have a little play with this. I want you to see if you can keep the space between your calf and your thigh the same, and the space between your ribs and your thigh the same. Have a little play. Notice if you're using a bit of momentum. Last one. Brings you up to sit. And when we get there, the toes hover just an inch away from the floor. We're lengthening nice and tall and the shoulders glide down the back. Take a nice deep breath for me there. Let go of the legs. Yeah. We'll see if one leg can just stretch forwards. And softening down. And lift. And soften down. One more on each side. See if both legs can stretch. And releasing. Well done, guys. Good. Bringing ourselves around to a crouch position. Just tucking the toes under and just take a moment to rock gently forwards and back in that crouch position. And then we're going to gently bring ourselves up to standing. So we'll press the heels into the ground, we'll let the head be nice and heavy, and we'll start to gently roll up through the spine. Dropping the tailbone, rolling up through the spine. Head comes on top, last thing of all. Lifting the shoulders when you get there, roll the shoulders back and down. Take a little rise, heels lift away from the floor. And then we float the heels back down. Take a deep breath in, reaching really tall. Breathing out as we let it all go. And give it a good shake out. Give yourself a round of applause.